now.
Okay.
Okay. All right. I'm supposed to introduce you. Okay. Today I'm talking to Meenadchi. Wait, I didn't do it. Okay. Today I'm talking to Meenadchi. They're a facilitator and they teach nonviolent communication with a decolonial and transformative justice lens. Hi, Meenadchi.
Hi, Mia.
How are you?
I'm good.
Good. I don't feel great about how I pronounce your name, but I'll work on it. How's it? How are you today?
Mia.
Yes.
So many things. When I'm like, can you hear my roommate walking around? Can you hear my roommate walking around?
No, can you hear the people above me?
Can't hear things.
Okay. Someone knocked on my door today and was like, I'm your upstairs neighbor. We're going to be having a housewarming party, so it might get Yes, your face. Your face. I was like, excuse me? What? Out of what portal did you arrive? It was weird. He was wearing a mask, too. The world we live in. How are you today?
I think today I'm a little bit all over the place. How fast do you want to dive, Mia?
I think by the end of this podcast, I would like to hit a 7. A 7 out of 10. So you can pace it.
No, because
or you can just start at a 7.
Because I'll just start at a 10 and I'll see.
I want to go. This is like famous last words, right? But I want to go as deep as you'd like to go. Truly.
Cancer to cancer. What is the rest of your? Do you know the?
Do I know?
Yeah.
I have a strange thing where astrology information doesn't stay in my brain.
Okay.
I know that I'm a Cancer, and I know that I'm like a pretty spot on Cancer, and I also know that there's something really sticky and disgusting, and I have no idea what it is, on the bottom of my cup.
Go.
This is really gross.
BRB. Hello, fair Mia's listeners. This is Meenadchi. This is how I pronounce my name. Mia is washing things in the sink, and we'll be back shortly.
Okay, and I'll also say, hi, Stella. Sorry, Stella.
Hi, Stella.
All right. So, okay, we're starting at, I just need to make a note of what time we're starting at. I've never been this frazzled in an episode in my entire life. Usually there's almost no editing that has to happen. You asked me if I know what else is in my chart. I don't really. I could look it up. Some people have like sent it to me. I could look it up, but I don't know. But why do you ask?
Oh, I think I was curious. I think I have you pegged for like a Scorpio rising.
Oh, I'll check after.
Yeah.
So today, you're a little all over the place. Why do you think that is?
I started watching I May Destroy You.
When you said that, I felt this like incredible knowing feeling in my entire body.
Have you already watched it, or have you also just started watching?
No, I am up to the latest episode.
Okay, I am not.
Okay. Where are you?
So I did not watch the first episode.
Okay.
and I have seen, I think, episodes 2, 3, and 4, maybe 5.
Was it a deliberate choice not to watch the first episode?
It was.
Did someone tell you not to?
I knew what the content of the show was,
Okay.
and knowing how story arcs go, I'm like, I know what's going to happen at the beginning of the first episode. I know what's going to happen at the end of the first episode. I'm not really interested in seeing all of that all over again. But I will watch the after.
Oh yeah, it's a really I was trying to describe it last night, and I was like, it's not, I actually wouldn't call it dark, because I think that she does such an incredible job of like finding light, but it's very heavy. Like there's something about it to me that, yes, like the subject matter it's dark, but the show itself doesn't feel dark, it feels heavy. I'm excited to hear your thoughts on future episodes. It's a pretty magnificent show. Can I ask you a question about labor? Do you have a sense of beginning to understand the concept of labor?
Yeah. For me beginning to understand it?
Yeah.
Me beginning to understand it probably came pretty late.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think...
What do you consider late?
Last year, this year, yesterday.
Oh. Do you want to talk about that at all? I can, because I want to like do this, but I also want your consent, like very much. So,
yes.
Okay.
I think I had a moment of it, like even on this episode so far, right? I think maybe I'll start by saying I don't like the term invisible labor. Because for me, that for me is like Harry Potter, like the invisibility cloak, and we're going to Hogsmeade. Let's go.
Yeah. It's like you just like cover yourself up and like poking people.
And that's not what this is. And part of it might be, like, how many people know that Stella is here? Stella's here right now. Right? Like Stella is thinking about like what are the volume levels, or there's these things that I don't know, right? But like what are all the things that Stella will need to edit? And somewhere I think in your brain or atmosphere you are holding Stella somewhere.
Yes. There's certainly an awareness that like we're not alone. Yeah, in addition to the people that are going to hear this at some point, like in the future,
Right. So yeah, I guess so. There's some piece around like so I don't think about invisible labor, because I think that term gives people an out. It's unacknowledged labor or unrecognized labor.
Yeah.
Because it's oftentimes right under our noses.
Right.
And I think sometimes when you don't know what goes into a product, which is also the product of capitalism, but we don't know what goes into the things that we consume, then we also miss the opportunities to recognize, celebrate, and uplift all the people who contributed along the way to getting to us.
Yeah. That makes me think of so many different things. The one thing that I'll say about that, or where that really resonates with me, is that I started, I don't remember when I started doing this, but probably around a year ago, I started praying before every meal. in part because I had to take so many pills that like all throughout the day and before meals that I thought that if I ritualized it, I would not forget to do it. And the prayer that I was using was like trying to track. Actually, I've never thought about it in terms of the labor, but like all the way back to the thing, so the plant or the animal, and like express gratitude to each step along the way, and then like prepare to be nourished by it. I've never thought about it in terms of labor. That's so kind of clearly what that is. That's so interesting. So what do you think, how do you think you began to, or maybe we need to even back up. What do you, how do you define labor?
Ooh.
I know, I'm going to try to think of mine too.
I think of labor as anything that is not in reciprocal relationship.
Oh. Okay.
Because I think when I hear the words labor or when I hear the word work, I feel exhausted or I feel tired. And what that for me is it indicates that we're not in reciprocity. There are times like I have friends who I educate, there are friends who educate me, right? There's a lot of ways that like shape the fuck up flows, right?
Yeah.
But when it's in reciprocity, it actually feels really good because me educating you contributes to our collective liberation and it does not feel exhausting, especially if you receive it and you turn around and you do some transformative shit.
Right.
But when I think about things that feel like labor, whether it's like fem labor, my Amma's labor in the house, which was exhausting for different reasons, like it's all the pieces of things where consent isn't present, where something is something is done, but nobody really wants it done. And I don't. It's like it's yucky. It doesn't feel good. I think of that as labor.
That's really interesting. I think maybe there needs to be a new word that distinguishes between like labor with negative connotations and labor with positive connotations. I think when I'm thinking like labor, thinking about things that I do in terms of labor has helped me value what I do. And maybe that's totally wound up in capitalism and the capitalism that is so ingrained that I think it's part of who I am, my personality. But I think because I get so much out of my work, but you also need to pay me. Like you also have to pay me, and you have to pay me like probably almost without a doubt more than I think you should pay me. Right? Like that's also a constant struggle, is being like, I am worth this much ease for myself. Like you need to give me enough money that I can relax and feel safe about it so that I can show up to you as like a whole human being. But it feels reciprocal emotionally and spiritually, and I almost heard like a slight judgment the way that I said spiritually. So I want to say that again because I don't feel that way. So much of my work is truly spiritually nourishing, but I call it labor because I need to communicate to myself that I also need to get paid. I mean, ask me again tomorrow.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, yeah.
It sounds like there's some piece, and maybe like in the verbiage, around accountability to ensure reciprocity.
Ooh, accountability like to myself or to the other people?
I think accountability to you that when you offer things, that there is reciprocity so that it can be joyous for you to do the offering.
Yeah, no, that is extremely true, and something that I've noticed recently in terms of like when people come to me and they're like, I think I want to be an intimacy coordinator. Like, would you get coffee with me? I get so like, I just feel this totally visceral, like, no, I won't. I won't. I don't want to. And honestly, like, I probably can't really do much to help you become an intimacy coordinator. Now, of course, that's a little bit different, but for all the rest of time, that has not been the case. And when someone says to me, like, hey, I have like career questions, do you consult? And I can say yes, and then they can pay me some money, like even, and it's on a really wide sliding scale. And anyone could be like, yeah, I could pay you $25 for an hour. And I'd be like, that's fantastic. So long as I then, because what that does is that it makes me feel like I'll reach out to I will use some of my connections and like gather a little bit of information for you. And I'll send you a follow-up email and I'll send you resources. And I'll give you like a full hour of undivided attention. Whereas if someone is like, I just want to like pick your brain, I don't know. I really appreciate, I don't like, I suppose, that it's like based in money, but I don't know, burn it all down. Until we burn it all down, I need to eat and like live, not with my parents.
Mm-hmm.
Meenadchi, I'm really afraid that I'm gonna end up just like blah, 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 blah.
It could happen, Mia.
It could, but I want to keep it focused on you.
Good luck. Out cancer a cancer. That's your goal for this.
Oh my God.
I was like, let's see, work it.
I knew as soon as you were like, can I ask you a question? I was like, I don't know. I don't know. Are the tables getting turned on me? All right, I'm taking it back then. I'm taking it back. And what I want to know is, okay, well then wait a second, because now I don't know how to talk about this kind of labor when you're saying that it's that you feel really bad about your association with the word. Because I'm thinking about like the work as labor and like everything that we do that generates new things, I think of as labor.
I do not.
Yeah, so what do we
purpose?
Okay. Ooh. Huh. I would agree with that. Okay, I need to ask you a question. Okay. What do you think of the name of this show?
Share the load.
Yeah, what does it mean to you?
I love it. I think when I think about that, it comes back to the unacknowledged labor that has existed for a long time. And I think one of the things that unacknowledged labor does, or just labor in general, if we're using my definition, right, of this thing, is it robs people of being able to live in their purpose.
Yes. Absolutely. Can you expand?
So share the load for me, I understood it to mean share the load in deconstructing and tearing down all the systems and talking about the things and doing the work of doing the work.
Yeah. Yes. I would say that's true. I think I like the way that you say that. It's not exactly what I was thinking, but it's a really cool like angle side of the prism. When I thought of,
I'm gonna burp.
Okay. Oh wow.
I hope it makes it in.
I'm all for it.
Stella.
So wait, what were we talking about before you burped?
You were trying to
Take it back.
uh-huh.
Oh, I was gonna say when I thought of, or when my friend's husband thought of the title, we were talking about sharing like the domestic burden, and how that like really it came up in a conversation around like the two of them, my really good friend and her husband, who I'm also friends with. He was saying that like when he got married, like at first he was not into domestic labor, but that he had found such a joy in the ritual of cleansing, and that was something that he had really like learned in relationship with her. And then we kind of were talking about the labor that goes unacknowledged and how to share that burden. And he was like, you could call it share the load. I was like, haha. So I think similar to what you're saying. Yeah. So how has that then shifted for you if you say that you feel like you only, well, you said that like that came to you late. How did it arrive, and when and why?
I think it arrived through a really late politicization. I think the seeds for my politicization have always existed. The seeds are deep, deep in my lineage. But my ability to articulate things, my ability to conceptualize things, has certainly been growing steadily. They have been growing steadily since my Saturn's return, right? There was a choice point that I had with my Saturn's return. And I was like, we are going to go all the way this way. But even that, and yeah, there are things I could say that like would probably take us up to a 79 on the 1 to 10 scale.
Okay.
So I'm like,
maybe that's the second episode.
Okay, yeah, that's the second episode. But yeah, so like a lot of my clarity around what is and isn't appropriate to ask for, to receive, has come relatively recently, within the last 5 years, and I'm 37.
Do you think that it's a typically Cancer trait to have trouble being in the accepting quadrant?
That's a good question. Because by accept you mean I can give?
No, that like if you're accepting, if you find it hard to be in the accepting quadrant because you find yourself serving most of the time.
That was a Cancer joke.
Oh, I didn't get it. It went over my head. Yeah, that one.
For me, I will say no. That's not where my Cancer trauma lies necessarily. But yeah, that is not where my Cancer trauma lies. Is that what it's been for you?
Yeah, I think I get really concerned that I'm gonna come across spoiled or entitled. And living with my parents was kind of interesting because I did revert back to some stuff. Like my mom just kept cooking all the meals. Like she just kept doing it. There wasn't a whole lot of communication about it. And she also like truly didn't seem, there were moments where there were occasions where she was like, I'm so burnt out on cooking. And then we would usually order takeout. I would help her cook a lot of the time. But Okay, I totally lost my train of thought. What I was saying was that she, I like, that's the only time that I'm kind of comfortable being like doted on a wee bit. You know, are you hungry? Like, she would do that stuff. And other than that, like, other than with my parents, where I do act probably a little entitled, I mean, I know that I do. Other than that, I have a really hard time like not being in service, because I think it feels more active to me, and that feels like I think I maybe mix up serving with sharing the load.
Yeah, I think probably the pieces that I'm tracking is that we may keep hitting like a dead end or something around like verbiage,
Yeah.
right? Because even the concept of the load, right? The idea that something is exhausting. I keep thinking back to, I was at a friend's house a couple of years ago. I was spending like Christmas with them and their family. And I just remember the trash being full, and I don't, and there were like 20, there weren't 20 of us, but it was like her whole family. Ahila, I love you. Right. And so and it was something like I took out the trash and then I came back and the trash liner was already in place. Right. So it's not this idea, it's this idea that taking out the trash is laborsome. And it's like, no, the trash is just the thing that has to go outside so that we can keep eating and so that we can keep enjoying spending time with each other. And it doesn't feel laborsome because it feels nice to plug into people that I love. It feels nice to be in Tetris mode.
I love that at the end of that whole thing, you just threw in a Tetris metaphor.
I love it.
Wow. I think I used a Tetris metaphor yesterday. So this wavelength has a lot going on. I want to probably insist that my father listen to what you just said, and I can probably send it to him. Hey, Dad. Or maybe I won't, so that I can talk about him right now. What's your instinct?
Talk about your dad and send it to him.
And send it to him? Oh, boy. Maybe I'll send it to my mom first. She can take a listen. Is it okay if I talk about a little bit of childhood trauma? Okay, thank you. Wow, it's really amazing now that I think about prosody all the time. I notice I'm frantically twirling this around my finger. Okay, I'm nervous, right? When I basically just gave you a content warning, I felt this like tingliness all in my chest and my gut, and I felt my shoulders tighten up here. And I stopped looking at you. So transparent. We're so transparent. All right. I had a really productive conversation with my dad recently about some trauma. We were in the jacuzzi, all three of us, and we were talking. My mom said, wow, this is like getting a lot more personal than I actually meant to get, but that's okay. My health really took like a pretty sharp downturn while I was living with my parents. And my mom said to me in the jacuzzi, she was like, if there is anything that you are not trying because of money, just tell us and we'll pay for it. And that was like really emotional and really huge and really meant a lot. And I was like, well, the stuff that I want to try is really like emotional and stress related, and it's about trauma and like releasing trauma from the body. Like I've been doing EMDR, and I have been looking for like a somatic practitioner therapist who's also like sex positive and so on. And I actually found one, but I was afraid that my parents would be like, well, that's not like actually medicine or whatever. Like, that's not what we meant. You know, if I go to like hypnotherapy, which is what I want to do. And my dad was like, what do you mean trauma? And I was like, well, a lot of like gut and autoimmune stuff is tied to trauma. And he was like, what do you mean, like from your childhood? Um, Not in a gaslighty way, not in like a how could you possibly say that way, but in like a, you know, he was like nervous that it was warm. And I said, and then it got a little tense and I kind of just like nodded and shoved it down. And then my mom got out of the jacuzzi and my dad was like, do you want to get out? And I was like, I actually want to talk to you for a second. And I said, you've asked me a couple times now, like what this about trauma, like when I've brought up trauma and my health. And you ask it in a way that makes me think that you feel like it's kind of I'm getting a weird feedback. Okay, now it's okay. You asked me about it in this way that makes me think that you feel like it's kind of a mystery. And what I really need to tell you is that it's not, and it's a lot of it is from you and your anger and your volatility. And that is what I've talked about like for the bulk of my life in therapy for the last 15 years or so. And also as a result of getting comfortable with that and familiar with that, I've stayed in other situations where I thought it was okay because it felt so familiar to me. And I don't think that he's ever like heard me the way that he actually heard me that night. He said, you'll probably laugh at this. I was like, Dad, therapy isn't like a magic bullet. Like it doesn't fix you. You still have to like do a bunch of work on you. And I feel like I and other people have told you what we think that work could look like. And I know you're in therapy, but you're not really doing that other work. There are tools, there are practices, and a lot of people, he has told me, including myself, have suggested meditation. And he was like, I'm pretty good at calming myself down. Do you really think that meditation is going to offer me anything? Not in those exact words, but like very close. And I thought at the time, do you think that like everyone who's meditating isn't as good as you are at calming themselves down? I didn't say that. But what I said was, yes, it rewires your brain. It should help you prevent yourself from even getting to that point. And he was like, okay, well, my therapist sent me some recommendations for like meditations and stuff. And in the end, I was like, there's some books I'd like to send you. There's some podcasts I'd like to send you. There's some resources. And he was like, okay. And I emailed them to him the other day and he said he would look at them. One of the recommendations was an episode of Adrienne Marie Brown's podcast where she reads her own writing. And I just couldn't believe the things that were coming out of her mouth. I was like, I've never heard anyone say how I feel better than that. Anyway, that was really long. I really took up a lot of time. I'm working on not apologizing. Instead, I'll say, thank you for listening to that. It got away from me.
It was beautiful, and thank you for sharing.
Thank you. I would consider that to be labor. That would be like part of my definition of labor. Is that different from your definition of labor?
Not necessarily. It depends on it depends on the turning point for your dad.
Ooh.
Right. So if your dad if he receives your recommendations, and is able to take them
Oh,
really receive them, really implement them, embody them, unpack, do the work, then all of that stuff transforms into purpose, into
purpose.
work we are meant to do.
Oh, wow. Just that thought alone lessens the load. It's almost making me think of like a year ago when I was really trying to like do anything I could to feel better, and I was like, I started praying and I got much more closely in touch with the source and like my body and my intuition, and like, you know, something that I might call God. um Meenadchi, I have no idea what I was gonna say. No idea. Like absolutely no idea.
Mia, you don't have to say anything, and this will still be a really good episode.
I agree. What were we talking about though? What did you say?
Well, we were talking about God, and we were talking about your dad and the imagining of like if your dad actually received all of your information.
Oh yeah. Almost.
Uh-huh. Ooh.
It's okay.
Shall I offer something on a riff of that?
Sure.
I do think that one of the problems of the context in which we live in is that the journeys of our ancestors are not acknowledged.
Mm-hmm.
And in the absence of that unacknowledgement, right, all of their purpose becomes unacknowledged labor.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
is a big impact on all of us, on our individual systems, on our collective systems, to take their life's purpose of whatever their purpose was and to not be in relationship to it, to not acknowledge that they did all of these things. It makes their life, like it also robs them of their being, their existence, their intentions, their purpose while they were alive.
Wow. So many things came to mind when you were saying that, but I kind of just don't have words. What is this class that you're taking?
Yeah.
Because what you said reminded me of that exercise that you gave me at the beginning, and I was like, because I was thinking that if that like then doing that intuitive intuition honing helps you get in touch with their purpose.
Are you okay, two things.
Yeah.
The intuition class that I'm taking is from Dr. Jale Phillips. I hope I've got it right. Just know her as Jale. Zhaleh. Give that a Google. Oh, you are okay. Breathe. Oh. Uh-huh. Nice.
Wrong too. It's amazing how that always makes me feel like like an embarrassed kid. Because I'm not crying. My voice just sounds like this. It's like getting hit in the gut with like a basketball.
I've never had that happen. I've gotten punched in the back before.
The wind knocked out at you?
Yeah.
This is going to be a doozy to edit.
Uh-huh. But yeah, it's probably going to be some good bridge building for you and Stella.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, I think I'm good. Let me take one actual sip of water.
Okay.
Okay. Do you remember what you were saying?
I was talking about Jaleh and Jaleh's work.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So yeah, and I think Jaleh's website is communicate, but like COMMIN commune C8, and then the number 8.
Okay.
Something like that. But so I guess, yeah, so this practice that I had been telling you about, so that I am taking an intuition class right now with Jaleh, and it is wonderful. It's very, very good. And what was the other question?
Well, I guess I'm curious what led up to this point?
Up to the point, Mia, we might be off in the Wonderland. Up to the point of this conversation between you and me,
up to the class. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that for me as a Cancer, intuition has always been part of my being to some extent. And then in recent years, I have been honing it more.
Mm-hmm.
And then I really wanted a class specifically on intuition. And then Jaleh's class showed up in my inbox, and I was like, yes,
wow,
I will take that right away.
Wow. It's amazing when those things just happen and you're like, yes. Okay. I want to ask you about the work that you do. Through this window of does the work that you do have the same kind of connotations for you as labor?
The work that I do is my purpose.
Okay. So I guess I want to hear, I'm wondering,
Sometimes it feels laborsome.
Sure. I'm more interested in like understanding how you found it as your purpose.
I have that story.
Okay. Great.
I mean, I've been on a forever long journey for what my purpose is. And I found NBC in 2002 through a very magical human being. And then most NBC spaces that I was in were very white. It was ruled by a lot of unacknowledged white supremacist politics. And so I left NBC spaces, and then I came back to NBC spaces when my mentor asked me for some support. And then I realized that I was good at a thing. I was like, oh, it feels good to offer this thing. And then I started teaching, and the rest is like wildfire.
Wow. It's so amazing. I've had I don't want to say that I've had the same feeling. I've had a similar experience with what I now see as the work that I'm doing. And the way that it has found its own way. And it feels like I'm kind of along for the ride. And it feels so very purposeful. And also, as you said, even at the beginning, that I think it's been like my whole life leading to, I mean, I guess most people would say that, but I think what I'm hearing you say is like finding that intuition, getting more in touch with that like driving force makes it not feel like labor anymore. It's just like organically growing, wafting out, and like creating itself almost. And I'm just like uncovering it or discovering it, chasing after it.
I don't know if I've said all of those things, but I really like the way you said it.
Well, I have a big wrap-up question. And take your time. Can you name 3 informative or like crucial nuggets from your life, whether it's media, a conversation, a person, book, article, podcast, movie? 3 things that you would say most closely inform the way that you think right now.
Oh, shit. I cannot answer this without going into the deep, all the things.
You can also do more than that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, wait. The question was 3 things that have informed my something?
Like how you think now. I mean, I can tell you what mine are. It might help.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Okay, The Wheel of Consent.
Okay.
Rent, the original Broadway musical.
Amazing.
And wow, this is funny because the last time I tried to do this for myself, I had 2 more and I was like, I don't know which one's more important. Maybe like understanding mirror neurons.
Okay. Then I think the pieces that are emerging for me in this moment are a memory of my amma when I was 6, taking me to Costco, and we had a Nissan Sentra hatchback, and her loading up the back every book set she could possibly buy.
Every what set?
Book set, like Laura Ingalls Wilder, Chronicles of Narnia, like all those Newbery, metal books. Just every set of books that she could get from Costco, and the joy on her face of being able to give me those things.
Oh, wow.
So that feels like one.
Did you like those books?
My amma loves books. It is the first memory that I have of knowing that my amma loves books and that she was so excited about sharing that joy with me, about passing that generational joy on.
Wow.
So that's one. The second is my cousin. And we didn't even know we were cousins. He came up to me after a show and was like, I was in a show. And so my sophomore year of college, I was in the Vagina Monologues. And he came up to me afterwards and was like, hey, you're Sri Lankan. And I was like, yeah. And then we became friends. And then a couple of years later, as is the case for many, we found out we were related, yada, yada.
Whoa.
And he has put up with so much. He has just really always witnessed me in my like capacity for transformation, regardless of where I was like functionally actually at. He has always seen me at where I could be, or not even where I could be, but he has always seen me at the core of me. He has seen through all the ways that like layers and systems of oppression have been baked onto me. And he has always been like crystal clear laser vision to the insides of me and like held a calibration for me at that place.
It sounds like maybe he sees your purpose.
I don't know if I'm like, what would you say? I'm like asking him right now. um, so him. And then the other thing I will say, just to keep it simple, is like all the people who have come into my life in the last 3 years, which includes many people who have caused harm, and also many people who have supported or stood for the naming of these things.
Yeah.
Because a lot of those pieces have culminated in me being able to reach like an actual embodied politic.
Embodied politic. Well, thank you for sharing. Those were really beautiful nuggets. Well, Meenadchi, can you tell people where they can find you?
Yeah. You can find me in my home.
Me too. All day.
Oh, some of the basics. You can find me on Instagram at Who Stole Serendib. So WHOSTOLESERENDIB. If you're following me, you can find me and then
I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah. And then my website is traumainformednbc.com.
All right, Meenadchi. This was lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to stop the recording.